The year 1914 saw the beginning of a conflict that would change the world forever, World War I. It was a war unlike any other, spreading across the globe and bringing unimaginable violence and destruction. From the trenches of Europe to the deserts of the Middle East, millions of soldiers would fight and die in a war that would change how we think about war itself. The stage for this global conflict was set in the decades leading up to 1914. Europe, a continent full of powerful empires and different ways of thinking, was like a powder keg waiting to explode. Nationalism, the desire for empires, and a complicated web of alliances created an environment of mistrust and hostility among the most powerful countries. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, on June 28, 1914, was the spark that lit the fuse. This single event, seemingly small in the grand scheme of things, would set off a chain reaction that would throw the world into war. Within weeks, Austria-Hungary, fueled by anger and a thirst for revenge, declared war on Serbia, the country they blamed for the Archduke's murder. The complex system of alliances that had been carefully built over the previous decades kicked in, dragging one country after another into the conflict. By August 1914, what started as a regional conflict in the Balkans had blown up into a full-scale European war. Germany, allied with Austria-Hungary, declared war on Russia and France, both allies of Serbia. Great Britain, bound by its treaty with Belgium, declared war on Germany after German troops marched through Belgium on their way to France. The Great War had begun. The start of World War I wasn't a sudden, unexpected thing. It was the result of decades of growing tensions and a complex web of alliances that entangled the nations of Europe. These alliances, originally meant to keep the peace through a balance of power, ended up making things worse and pulling countries into a war they might not have otherwise joined. At the center of this tangled web were two opposing alliances, the Triple Entente and the Triple Alliance. The Triple Entente, formed in the early 1900s, consisted of France, Russia, and Great Britain. These countries came together because they shared a suspicion of Germany's ambitions and wanted to limit German power. The Triple Alliance, on the other hand, was formed in 1882 and consisted of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. This alliance was driven by Germany's desire to isolate France and remain the strongest power in Central Europe. Italy's commitment to the alliance, however, would weaken, and in 1915 Italy would switch sides, joining the Allied powers. On top of these major alliances were a bunch of smaller, often secret agreements between individual countries. These agreements, often driven by personal ambitions or regional concerns, made the already messy web of European diplomacy even more complicated. This complex web of alliances meant that a fight between even two countries could quickly drag in others. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, while a tragedy on its own, provided the spark that ignited this powder keg of alliances, setting off the chain reaction that led to the outbreak of World War I. The streets of Sarajevo, Bosnia were busy on the sunny morning of June 28, 1914. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, and his wife Sophie were visiting the city in a show of power. They had no idea that their visit would be tragically cut short, setting in motion events that would have unimaginable consequences. As the Archduke's motorcade drove through the crowded streets, a group of 6 assassins, members of the Black Hand, a Serbian nationalist group, were lying in wait. Their target, the Archduke himself, a symbol of Austro-Hungarian rule over the Slavs of the Balkans. The first attempt on the Archduke's life failed when a bomb thrown at his car missed. Undeterred, the assassins spread out throughout the city, waiting for another chance. Fate, it seemed, had other plans. Later that day, as the Archduke's car made its way to visit the people injured in the earlier attack, it took a wrong turn, stopping right in front of one of the assassins, Gavrilo Princip. Seizing his opportunity, Princip stepped forward and fired 2 shots, mortally wounding both the Archduke and his wife. News of the assassination spread like wildfire across Europe. Austria-Hungary, outraged and seeking revenge, blamed Serbia for the attack and issued an ultimatum demanding Serbia's cooperation in an investigation. Serbia, afraid of being invaded, agreed to most of Austria's demands but refused to allow Austrian officials to operate freely on Serbian soil. This seemingly small point of contention, combined with Germany's unwavering support for Austria-Hungary, proved to be the final straw. On July 28, 1914, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, setting in motion the domino effect of alliances that would plunge Europe and eventually the world into war. Life in the trenches during World War I was, to put it simply, awful. Soldiers faced constant threats from enemy fire, disease, and the harsh weather. The trenches were muddy, often flooded, and infested with rats. Despite the terrible conditions, camaraderie among soldiers was strong, providing a glimmer of hope in the face of adversity. Death, unfortunately, was a frequent visitor, and the emotional toll on those who survived was immense. The trenches were a stark reminder of the brutal reality of war, where every day was a fight for survival. World War I introduced a whole bunch of new weapons that changed the way wars were fought forever. From the deadly machine gun to the fearsome tanks and the silent, stealthy submarines, warfare was transformed. Chemical weapons like mustard gas brought a new level of horror to the battlefield. These innovations led to unprecedented levels of destruction and loss of life. The human cost of World War I was staggering. Over 10 million soldiers died and millions more were wounded. Civilian casualties were also immense, with entire towns and cities destroyed. The psychological impact was profound, with countless soldiers suffering from what was then known as shell shock. The war left deep scars on societies around the world. The war also led to the fall of several empires. The Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, Russian and German empires all crumbled under the immense pressure of the conflict. New nations emerged from the ruins, redrawing the map of Europe and the Middle East. This period of upheaval set the stage for many of the political and social changes that would shape the 20th century. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, officially ended the war. However, its terms were harsh and punished Germany severely, leading to significant economic hardship and political instability. The treaty's legacy was a controversial one, contributing to the rise of extremism and laying the groundwork for World War II. The peace it sought to secure was ultimately short-lived.